Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jack of All Trades podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Musso, and today's episode is kind of a part 2 to last week's episode, which was meant to be a Tennessee trip recap, but I actually didn't really get very far into this week's trip. If you have not listened to last week's episode, please go listen to that one first, because that's going to give you a lot of context for this one. I'm basically just going to pick up right where I left off last time. So go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet, and then come back and join me here. I'm going to pick up where I left off, which was, I believe, talking about now Monday. It would be the Monday of the trip. So this is the full week in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, with my parents and brother. Just for a quick reminder, had the Coldplay concert with my brother Ethan and my cousin Heather on Tuesday, July 15th, and then met up with my parents afterwards. We drove down to Tennessee. We stopped at New York City first, got to Tennessee, had a big karate tournament on Saturday, competed in that, and then the whole following week was spent at a cabin in Tennessee that we rented. My aunt and uncle and cousin Curtis and then Heather also joined us for the week, and it was their first time kind of getting to explore that area. My family, we have stayed in that area before on a different trip, and then we've also done some exploring a little bit then, and we also have been in that area when like the Gatlinburg area before, when I competed in the karate tournament before. So anyways, so Monday, I believe this was Monday. And you know what? Actually, what we did was, and I think I just deleted it. I should go back and look. But we made like a schedule, and we literally posted it like at the door of the cabin. And that was actually a really, really good idea. I kind of recommend that if you're going to be anywhere for like an extended period of time, especially with a bigger group of people. Like, take the time to write out a schedule of like plans for meals and for like just plans of what you're going to do, and then post that somewhere where everyone can see, and that just helps everybody plan and prevents people from asking, what are we doing? When are we doing this? What are we doing? What should I wear? What should we, like, timing wise? So anyways, that's a very helpful thing. I highly recommend doing that. But anyways, yeah, so Monday morning, we went to Tuckaleechee Caverns, and I've been to a couple other caverns or caves in my life. The thing is, I don't really remember much about any of them. I went to, it was Cave of the Winds. If you've ever been to like Garden of the Gods or Cave of the Winds, it's in, I don't remember exactly. It might be Colorado. It's somewhere like in the Southwest. It might have been New Mexico or Arizona. I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. Don't feel like looking it up right now. But anyways, I've been there. That was quite a few years ago, though, at this point. And then even earlier than that, the trip that I took with my family, that was after 4th grade, I think, was like a little bit of like the Midwest and then the North. Like we went to also like South Dakota and some of those areas. Like we went to Yellowstone, and we went to like the Mount Rushmore Memorial, whatever you want to call it, and all of that. And there was a cave that we went to there. It was like Jewel Cave or Jewel Caverns or something. I remember nothing about that, to be completely honest. I just know that we did it. It's just like a vague memory. Tuckaleechee Caverns in Tennessee has been the most memorable so far, I guess, considering I remember nothing about the other two that we did. But my parents were also talking about this one being cool because of the running water in it, which I guess I didn't really remember, but maybe the other ones we did never had running water in them. But I fully would not have expected, I don't know why, I just like wouldn't have thought that Tennessee of all places would have these caverns, but they were really cool, and they were just a few minutes from where we were staying. Apparently they are like some of the most sensitive caverns in terms of like they have sensors and stuff where they can actually like tell if places like North Korea are doing testing, like missile testing or like whatever that they're doing. Like they can tell, like there will be certain vibrations, I guess, in the caverns, and that's how sensitive it is. So that's actually really cool. And there's a lot of history behind these. Our tour guide was absolutely incredible. He was probably like mid-20s. I don't know. I'm really bad at guessing people's ages, but he was a young guy. He was part of the family. I guess like all of his family, works at this place. It's been in the family for a while. So it was really cool. We got there. They open at like 10, and we got there pretty much first thing. And so we were in the first tour group. And I will say, if you ever plan to go to Tuckaleechee Caverns, I do recommend getting there right when they open and being on one of those first tour groups, because it does actually get really busy. Like when we came out afterwards, like the parking lot was packed. And honestly, like on our way back through the caverns, we met several tour groups. But we were able to just kind of go along like at our own pace, and we had the whole place to ourselves. So if you can get there for the first tour, I recommend it. Anyways, basically, we go in this building, and then right in that building, we go down into the cave from there. And then it was actually really deep. Like we climbed down quite a ways, and we were in this group. We had the tour guide, and he was really funny. He like kept making all these jokes, and he was just like, he was very entertaining. And we got a few little glimpses or snippets of like the other tour guides, all of which were also like young guys, probably in the family too. I don't know. And they just did not seem as fun, to be completely honest. So we got the good one. I don't know his name, but he was good. He was very entertaining and definitely knew what he was talking about. And the caverns were really cool. There was like running water down there, which was really neat. You know, the stalagmites and stalactites and all the formations and everything. Like we learned some about those, and there was there was like so many cool different formations. And actually the tour was longer than I thought it was going to be. Like there was a couple times I thought, oh, like maybe it's over. That was pretty quick. But no, it was actually long, and you definitely get your money's worth. And there were some cool things, like there's this one spot that we stopped for quite a while and all kind of sat down, and it was this giant cavern. Like you could fit a small football field in there apparently. And like there was all these formations that our tour guide talked about. And then he turned off all of the lights completely so that it was pitch black, and it was crazy. And then had us all like be completely silent for a second. Not gonna lie, it was really hard to not laugh at that moment because it was like completely silent, and I don't know. It was cool though. But you literally couldn't tell if your eyes were open or closed. Like it was dark. But also in that same spot, like in that giant room, there was a lot of echo. And so we did like a group scream kinda. It was fun. The tour guide had us all, like on the count of 3, yell the word echo really loud, and then he was like, no, you guys can do better than that. And so he had us do it again, like really loud, and it was crazy. Like just hearing it echo around the room and come back to us, like that many people all like yell. It was wild. So that was really cool. And there was also like an underground waterfall that we got to see, and that was really cool. It's like apparently the tallest underground waterfall in, I don't know if it was in the country or in the east, or I don't remember exactly what, but you could only see like a certain amount of it, but like it actually goes up really, really high, and it was just really cool to see. And then there was a spot in the cave where you could like kind of stick your head up into this like gap in the rocks, and if you like hum really loudly, it like reverberates, and from the outside of it, it just sounds like so cool. It kind of sounds like a foghorn if you've ever heard one of those. It was really neat. So, and there was also a spot where we stopped, and he's like, you guys want to go to the beach? And so there was kind of this underground little beach, air quotes, area, and the water is like super clean, super pure, like you can drink it. So like he told us that if we wanted to drink it, we could. And so some people were drinking it, which I didn't, but that's also because one guy decided to go wading, and I was like, I'm not going to drink downstream from this guy in his Crocs, like wading in the stream, like respectfully. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I did not drink the water, but I'm sure it was very pure and very cold and very good. Anyways, Tuckaleechee Caverns. I highly recommend if you're ever in the Gatlinburg, Townsend area. Gatlinburg is a bit of a drive from there, but if you're in the Townsend area, I recommend. So that's what we did on Monday morning. In the evening, we went to Anakista, and Anakista is in Gatlinburg. I forget what that word translates to. I can't remember. So if you want to know, you'll have to look it up. But Anakista was really cool. Basically, we actually parked in like the same spot that we parked for the karate tournament, and then just walked a little ways through downtown Gatlinburg to get to it. But it's on top of this mountain, and you ride a chairlift up, which is cool. Like I've only been on a chairlift like when I've been skiing, so I've only ever been on one in the winter, and I've never ridden one down a mountain. So that was really cool. We did get rained on the way up. It's kind of a long ride. Like it's a ways to get up there, and we saw like rain coming across the mountains, and we're like, uh-oh. And so we did get rained on. None of us had umbrellas or rain jackets or anything. So it was a little chilly and it was a little rainy at first when we got to the top, but luckily it did clear out. So it wasn't raining the whole evening. But so basically how Anakista works is you can pay like a general admission to get in, and there's a bunch of things that you can do just in that like general admission. And then there's a few other things that you can like pay extra to do. Like there's mountain coaster, I think there's zip lining, there's a like a lights show, which we did. It's called Astrolumina. But for the most part, like the general admission, there's like a bunch of food places that are like from a bunch of different states around the country. So there's like some pass that you can get where you can like go to a certain amount of them and like try different regional foods. We didn't do that because we had already eaten, but that's something cool that you can do. And then it's just a cool place to walk around in. It's very family friendly. Like there's a lot of fun things to do for people, kids of all ages. There was really pretty gardens, and there's this giant observation tower that you can climb, and then you get like a 360 view. And what's interesting is that Gatlinburg is like right on the edge of the Smoky Mountain National Park. If you look out like in one direction from that tower, you see Gatlinburg and all the other surrounding areas. You see lights, you see houses and stores and things. And then to the other side, it's just like untouched wilderness. It's just trees. There's no lights. It's just the mountains. And you can tell that it's a national park. And that's really cool. I mean, yeah, there was a bunch of things to do. There's like a treetop skywalk that you can do that's like all these suspended bridges out in the trees. That's really cool to do. And it was actually pretty long. So that was fun. And there's also like there's like all kinds of little things to explore that are like sort of tree themed, but you can climb around in. So I highly recommend. It's cool even if you're not just a kid. And what's funny is we ran into the same karate family that had apparently been on Cade's Cove Loop the night before, like I mentioned in the last episode. We ran into them like up on Anakista. So it was like this little kid that he's someone that I've kind of like taken under my wing a little bit because I was there like at his first karate tournament, and it's been cool to like see his growth and support him. But it was just funny that I was climbing down from like one of the things that my cousin and I were up in, and this little kid was climbing up, and we come face to face, and like it was funny because we kind of just like stared at each other for a solid like 5 seconds at least without saying anything. Like our brains were processing, and I was like, this kid looks familiar. I was like, do I know? And then I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure. I didn't want to like say anything if it wasn't him. So that's why I was like just standing there kind of frozen. And then I eventually realized, and I was like, oh, hey. So that was cool. We got to see him and his family that was also up there. So it was just funny to run into them. So just like how we actually ran into our karate instructors when we were at Walmart before the tournament, when we were shopping. And it was like we came around the corner and like, oh, hey, how's it going? It was cool to run into them. When it got dark, we did Astrolumina, and that's something that we had booked a time for. Our time was 9:45, but you can actually go within like 30 minutes of before your time. So we went a little bit earlier. But Astrolumina is something that I would highly recommend. It is such a cool experience. If you have epilepsy, though, I would not recommend. Like if you can't handle flashing lights or things, I would say you might want to skip out on that one. Basically, it's this structured experience through the woods where there's all these different displays, and it's kind of like star themed, like sort of the journey of a star, like a star falling and like being reborn, and like stars' dreams and like all these things. It's like very it's like celestial themed, and it's just really cool. They have these giant speakers hidden in the trees, and especially because it's dark and like they're black and they're draped in black fabric and all this stuff, you can't see the speakers. So it's just like this music surrounding you, and it's kind of like very celestial sort of music. It kind of reminded me of being at like some immersive like sound bath spa or something. It wasn't spa music. Like it was very majestic. It really did make you feel like you should be just among the stars. And it was a cloudy night for us, but I did see pictures of like clear nights when you can see the stars, and I'm sure they would be gorgeous. So it would have been cool to see that. You stop at all these stations, and there's like these really cool light exhibits and displays, and sound that goes with it, and like fog, mistiness and stuff that they're pumping out. And it's such a cool experience. And honestly, it was longer than I thought it would be. Like if you really take your time in each of the different displays and like walk through it, it's really cool. And like it's in the dark and you're in the woods, and it's like it's amazing. And my favorite part of it was there was this one spot where there were lasers. They were like pink and purple and blue, and they were coming from above you for the most part. There might have been some coming from below, but there was tons and tons and tons of them. You were like walking through them. You're like walking through the trees and you're walking through the lasers, and you feel like you should be physically like feeling them, and you're not, because it's literally just light. But there was one part of that exhibit where, because these lasers were like moving around, right? So you're like fully immersed in this, like these beams of light that are just like moving all around you. It was like actually a little bit disorienting to try and walk through. But then there was this part where like the music, it went to this beat where the lasers would be like moving, and then they would just freeze for a second and then keep going. And it was such a weird experience where it felt like, you know how you see in like movies or music videos or whatever, where like time stops for a second, but like the main actor or whoever can still move. Like time is frozen, but they're not frozen. They're still like moving through it, but the world around them freezes. It literally felt like that. Like we were walking through it, and then you could still move, but like everything was frozen around you. Like that's how that felt when these lights stopped, and it was the craziest thing ever. Anarchista, and like especially if you add Astrolumina to it, definitely not cheap, but it is something that I feel like is really worth investing in doing if you're in the Gatlinburg area. And like I said, it's cool for all ages, so highly recommend. That was really, really cool. It was nice to like see the town and the mountains and everything at night on the chairlift ride down. And also, some people at our dojo, our karate dojo, have seen bears when they were like riding up the chairlift, up or down, because like you're going over wooded area. So we didn't see any, but it would have been cool. That was Monday. Tuesday, we kind of had a leisurely morning. I don't remember exactly what we did. I think some of us did like a group workout, to be honest. That might have been Tuesday morning, maybe. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Tuesday, though. In the afternoon, we went go-karting, and I had never been go-karting before, so it was really interesting. It was a very hot day, and we went to Pigeon Forge, which is another town that has a lot to do, and it's relatively near Townsend. We went to Pigeon Forge, we went go-karting, but there's truly so much to do at Pigeon Forge. So that's why it's also another popular spot for families to go and do all kinds of crazy things. And so basically, like what we did was you get like this card, and you get like 5 swipes on it, and each swipe is good for like one ride. Each go-karting ride, you get to go around the track like a bunch of times, like 4 or 5, like at least. It depends on your luck, I guess, because they just then like pull everyone over at a certain point, and if you happen to be there, then you might get like one less lap than everyone else, which is kind of too bad. But anyway, it was really fun. They didn't go as fast as I maybe expected them to. Like at certain point, like you could have your foot all the way to the floor on the gas, and like it was maxed out, and like there was just no easy way to pass people on a straight stretch unless your cart was like slightly faster than theirs, or you had like a weight advantage. But for the most part, if you're going to pass people, it's got to be on corners. But I wasn't like super into it for competitive reasons, although the last round that we did, it was like it got a little competitive, but yeah, it was definitely interesting whipping around those corners on this go-kart. And actually, I thought that I got in trouble for a second because, well, this was the second round that I did, and there was this guy, like this kid, that he drove me insane because he was in front of me and I was trying to pass him, and I just like couldn't get past him because every single corner we went around, the way he would take the corner, like he would go like, and so I would try and go around the corner as well, but then he would just like cut in really tight and basically go like perpendicular in front of me, and I almost slammed into him so many times. And like they very clearly are like, no ramming into people, no bumping into people, like no reckless driving, all this stuff. And so I was getting so mad at him, and like I almost just rammed into him intentionally because I was like, dude, stop cutting me off, bro. But then I couldn't get past him on the straight stretches or anything. Finally, he all of a sudden on one straight stretch, like he like really slowed down for a second, and I was like, oh, finally. Like I don't know why he's slowing down, but like this is my chance. So I'm going past him, and then out of the corner of my eye, I see one of the track attendants like blowing a whistle and like kind of waving like at me. And I think this kid thought that they were waving at him, and that's why he slowed down. And so I got to pass him, but they're actually waving at me. But by the time I saw it, I was like already past it and like going around the corner, and I was like, uh-oh, like I hope they don't think that I'm just trying to like avoid them. Like I can't stop at this point and go back. So I get around the corner and there's like another track attendant like trying to flag me down, and I'm like, uh-oh, like what did I do? Like what happened? Maybe they thought that I was like driving recklessly like with this kid. Like what did they do? What did I do? And so I pull over, and of course like some of my other family is like driving by, and they're like thinking maybe I have some issue with my cart, or like they don't know what's going on. And the lady is just like, "You need to tie your hair up. You need to tie your hair up." And she hands me this hair tie. It says on the thing like no hair down below your shoulders. So I had my hair up in a high ponytail, but my hair just happens to be long enough that even when it's in a high ponytail, it is down below my shoulders a little bit. But the thing is, they didn't say anything about that the first round at all. They said absolutely nothing to me. Nobody noticed. Nobody said, like, I don't know. Maybe my hair was tucked behind me more and they just didn't notice. I have no idea. My cousin Heather, she had a low ponytail, I'm pretty sure, and her hair was like partway down her back, and nobody said anything to her that first round or that second round or anything. But anyway, so I have to like waste some of my time on the round like throwing my hair up in this ugly stupid bun on the top of my head, and then just like doing it like that for the rest of the rounds. And so it was like, really, like, why did nobody say anything the first time? Like, why are you trying to flag me down the middle of my go-kart race? Like, let me finish my race. Like, I get it, safety, whatever, but I don't know. I thought I was in trouble at first. So when we were sitting and waiting to go for our fourth round, another group was going, and we see these girls come around the corner and like have the biggest crash ever. It was ridiculous. It was pretty dramatic. One of them ends up completely facing the wrong direction and then like drives straight across the track. It was like, what is happening? Like, this is crazy. And the attendant guy had to like sort them all out and everything. So anyways, they had that whole situation. And so then we did our fourth round, and then we did our fifth round, and guess who was in line with us? Those girls, the ones that had crashed out. There was 3 of them. And I was like, oh boy, this ought to be interesting. And how were they even like allowed back on the track? But anyway, so they're in the carts, and it just so happened that, well, actually, first of all, one of them like had her finger or something in a giant cast, and it very clearly says on the signs of like no casts, no like injuries, like you can't ride it with that. But anyway, they like, I think some like higher level person came out and was like talking to her, and then they like, she took the finger cast or brace or whatever off. They set it over to the side, and I was like, what is like, so that makes it better? Like, it's okay for her to ride it just without the cast, but like whatever broken finger probably still, like, I don't know what, that was weird. But anyway, like, how is that any less of a liability? But anyway, it's their business, not mine. The way that they dismiss you one at a time. And so it just so happened that these 3 girls were the first 3 to get dismissed to start driving in our round. And I was like, okay, that's going to be problematic. I was like, really, we're going to get stuck behind these girls, and there's no easy way to pass people on the straight stretches, and it's going to be absolutely miserable trying to like go around corners behind them. This is going to be problematic. Already know. And so we're going on the course, and they had enough of a head start. There was enough of other people in between us and them that like it didn't affect us right away. Okay. Until I come around the corner and I'm in this straight flat stretch. Well, okay. What happened? There was this other kid that was in front of my cousin Curtis, and Curtis was right in front of me. Then this other kid and Curtis, when they went around a corner, they kind of had a little mini slight crash. It wasn't really a crash, but it was like just enough that they like had to pause for a quick second, and I was able to pass Curtis, but not this kid. I think this kid still ended up in front of me. So I was in front of Curtis, and then we come to this flat straight stretch. It's like the widest stretch of the whole track, and it's the longest straight stretch of the whole track. And guess who is sitting there on the edge facing completely the wrong direction, like crashed out on the side? One of these 3 girls. And I'm like, wow, I'm shocked. I can't believe it's her. Wow, that's total surprise to me. Honestly. Like, how do you crash out and end up facing the completely wrong direction on the straight wide stretch on the course. How does that happen unless you literally just cannot steer? Like, my guess is that her and one of these other girls or like someone else was just swerving back and forth, can't steer, and then like rammed into someone else accidentally and spun around. Like, that's literally the only unless she hit the wall herself for no reason, that is the only way she would have ended up in the situation she was in. And they do have like attendants throughout the track, but on like the more dangerous spots where you would be expected to crash out. So like no one was seeing her in this tunnel because she was still there the second time that I went through. And eventually my uncle ended up pulling over and telling the attendant that she was stuck. And so then she got some assistance. But my poor aunt got stuck behind one of these girls and was just talking about how absolutely miserable it was. And eventually she did have to kind of like hit her a little bit and like to get by her. And I was like, honestly, girl, I don't blame you, because that's what I was worried about, was getting stuck behind one of these girls, which we did catch up. Me, Curtis, and then Heather was behind me. So at this point, I'm ahead of Curtis and Heather. And then me, Curtis, Heather, and this other kid that was in front of me, we catch up to one of these other three girls. And it's on a part where there's like some corners. And it was disastrous. Let me tell you, it was disastrous. And I don't understand how it is so hard to steer, like, especially when you can literally just go straight, like just go, and you don't even have to go fast, like let off on the gas. Anyways, somehow she was like swerving everywhere. This other kid tries to like get by her. Somehow it's like this whole crash situation, which I managed to like avoid. Somehow I have to like swerve out of the way, but I think like Curtis maybe, and then this kid and then her are kind of like crashing, and she ends up like spun the wrong direction over on the side. So her also. And then that's when Curtis and Heather both get by me and this kid. So I was like, really? Thanks to you, girl, I lost my competitive edge. Like, cause that was actually the most competitive round. And I don't know, the third girl, I don't know what happened to her, but she was just as bad of a driver. I don't know if she crashed out at all though, but it was like, ooh, some people, like, I don't want to be mean, but, and when we left, they were like sitting and watching and stuff. And I was like, it's probably for the best. Like, it's probably should sit this one out. Just saying. And the attendants afterwards were like talking to them, trying to like explain to them how to do stuff. And it's like, just kick them off the track. Like, they are a hazard. Just don't let them on the track, please. Luckily, it was our last round though. We didn't have to deal with them anymore. But after go-karting, we decided that we wanted a kids' night. So the adults went off and did their own thing. Well, I say kids' night. It's none of us are technically legally kids anymore. All of us are 18 and older, but anytime I'm talking about my cousins and I, we still like refer to ourselves as the kids, even though we're all adults now. It's weird, but we wanted a kids' night. And so the adults, I think they like went out to eat somewhere, and then I don't know, they got back to the cabin way before us. The four of us kids, stayed right there in Pigeon Forge, and we went to this place nearby to eat. I forget what it was called. It had something to do with like monster something, like cookie dough. I don't remember. It was basically like burgers and milkshakes and cookie dough. Like, they had all these flavors of cookie dough that you could buy, and I love cookie dough. I love it. It's like my guilty pleasure. I'm obsessed. So we all got really good burgers and milkshakes and cookie dough, and it was delicious. Anyways, we did that. And then Ethan, Heather, and I have been on a couple trips now together, the three of us. And so far, it's started to become a little bit of a tradition to do a sky wheel, which is basically like a Ferris wheel, but just like an enclosed glass capsule, or not capsule, but whatever you want to call it. And just like a little bit bigger than a Ferris wheel. We did one in Montreal, and we did one in Belgium. And so there's this place called the Island at Pigeon Forge, and it is technically an island because there's like a little bit of water kind of surrounding the whole thing, so you have to go over a bridge, but it's just like another there's tons of different like shops and things, and there's like a ropes course type thing, and there's the sky wheel, and there's these fountains that there's like a lights show, and it's just like things like that. So that's where the sky wheel was. So we did the sky wheel at sunset, and that was really pretty, actually, getting to see that. After that, we just stayed around because there was a fountains show. Like every half hour, the fountains there, they like do a couple songs to like the lights and the fountains and stuff coordinate to these songs. So we stayed and watched that. And then we just did like some walking around to go into the shops, try and find souvenirs and stuff. And after we did that, like by the time we got back to the cabin, it was actually pretty late already. And so that was our Tuesday. And also, this episode is already almost approaching the length that I usually try to keep it to. And I'm only on Tuesday. So I was not intending for this to be a 3-part series, but it might have to, because I have a very entertaining story for you that's later in the week. And I don't know if we're going to get to that unless this is an hour-long episode, which I don't want to do. Let's talk about Wednesday. Wednesday morning was supposed to be just kind of a chill morning. However, Cades Cove Loop, which is the loop that I had talked about that you can drive and see wildlife in the national park, that is closed to vehicles on Wednesdays because you can bike the loop, and there's like bikes that you can rent or whatever, but it's first come, first serve. Well, you can reserve some ahead of time, but we didn't. So everyone was like, if we want to do that, we're going to have to try and get there like right away so we can get a bike. But there was no guarantee that you would actually get a bike. And if not, it was like, well, maybe there's a little hike you can do. So some people were wanting to do that. I was honestly like, I was really tired from getting back so late anyways. And I was like, I don't want to get there and risk not getting a bike, because if I don't go biking, I do not want to go hiking. Like, we're already going to do hiking on Thursday. I don't want to burn myself out. Like, so my mom and brother and I actually ended up not going and just having like a chill morning at the cabin, which was very needed. I got to sleep in, do some editing. Because when I go on trips, I like to also make vlogs, and I don't post those publicly. I just share them with family and friends. And it's just like a nice way to have memories and stuff, because I have the memory of a goldfish, which is like, what, 3 seconds? I don't know. Yeah, so it's a nice way to like capture memories. So I was just editing that morning, I think. So some of the others went and they didn't even like get in at all. Like, they couldn't even get in to try to get bikes because it was already that full. They were just like turning cars around before they even got there on the road, which that is one thing I will say about, I've been to a lot of national parks, and I've heard other people talk about Great Smoky Mountain National Park like this too. There's actually a lot of traffic in this national park. It's pretty bad, like parking and everything. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that this national park is like free. Like, it might be that. I don't know. And I don't know actually if we had to pay for like the parking tag, like when on Thursday when we did like some hikes and stuff. I don't know if we had to pay for that or not. So like, you might have to pay for a parking tag because you are required to like have one of those in your car, but I'm not sure exactly on that. So anyway, so the others ended up just doing like a hike instead, which I was perfectly happy to miss out on, to be honest. I grew up in a family that loves hiking, and I've done a bunch of hikes, but personally, like, other than the cool view at the top, I am not a hiking fan, especially because it usually involves getting up super early, and exercise first thing in the morning is not it for me. So I was fine with missing out on that hike. So Wednesday afternoon, we went back to, I think it was in Pigeon Forge, and it was called the Dolly Parton Stampede. And it's like a dinner and a show sort of thing. And that's also not a cheap thing to do, but it is so worth it. I had wanted to do it for the past few years, ever since I saw some people from our karate dojo do it. And I also, I'm a horse girl. I love horses. And for anyone that hasn't listened to, I think it was my second podcast episode, I talked about my journey with horses. So if you want to, feel free to listen to that one. As a horse girl, especially, I loved this show. It was actually the coolest thing ever. So you get to the venue, and it's like kind of arena style seating, but it's like you go in and you sit on this like long bench in your row, and you have like this long basically table shelf type thing in front of you. You go in and like it's already set with all the plates and the silverware and everything, and you have like a waiter for like your row or whatever. And it's like everyone eats the same main meal, but then you choose between 2 different dessert options, and then you choose like your drink. So they come and like basically take your order for dessert and drink, and then they kind of do it in courses, because the first thing was like this like cream of vegetable soup, and then these rolls, and then the meal itself was like everyone got an entire chicken. There were small chickens, but like everyone got, and I was like thinking about, I was like, there are hundreds of like, just even for one, they do 3 of these shows a day, like 3 seatings. I'm like, the amount of chickens it would take to even feed like this one room of people right here, that is crazy. Like they're raising a lot of chickens. Like that's a lot. Anyways, so there was that. There was like corn, mashed potatoes. Maybe it was like pulled pork or something. I don't remember exactly what else. Yeah, it was and then dessert was like some coconut cake or like an apple turnover. So, if anyone cares, that's that's what it was, I think. But so you're eating as you're watching this show. The show involves horses a lot, but like it is still very like performance based. But there was like an MC, like a host, and he was on his horse too, but it was Dolly Parton themed, but also like Wild West sort of themed. Like there was a bunch of different acts, and there were some acts where there were people like suspended from the ceiling and then like interacting with people on the ground on horseback, and that was really cool. There was like a singing and dancing portion of it where they were like, they had the covered wagon and like all the wagon stuff, and then they like pull over and make camp for the night, and then they're like, it's all these guys and ladies in their like dresses and fancy clothes, and they're riding, and then they're dancing and singing, and that was really cool. There was like some trick riding. If you don't know what trick riding is, it's a type of horseback riding where you have a special saddle and you do these things where you'll be like, for example, like hanging by like one ankle, like upside down off of your horse as it's going around in like a full speed gallop, and you're just like hanging off this horse with your head like almost touching the ground. It's crazy. I would never do it, and it takes a lot of core strength, and it's actually insane. So they had some trick riders, and that was really cool. They also had Roman riding. If you don't know what Roman riding is, it involves 2 horses, or sometimes 4. I've seen it with 4, but 2 horses that you're standing on the backs of them, like standing, so 1 foot on each horse, and you're holding the reins. And the horses are, these horses were going at a full gallop, and this girl is like standing on top. I'm like, how do you, this is crazy. And then they had this like hoop of fire standing up, and she, Roman riding, so straddling 2 horses, jumps through this hoop on these horses while standing. And I'm like, that is actually insane. If you have ever ridden horses or know anything about horses, like how hard that is. It's insane. And then they had a bunch of different competitions because they basically split it up like one side of the room versus the other, and we were like competing. So there were some of these games where they had like audience members come down and compete. So they had like, there was a couple American miniature horses that like raced around the thing. There was like a couple pigs that raced around the thing. There was like some other contests like horseshoe throwing, and there was like a bucket brigade, and there was one part where the audience had to pass flags. I think our side actually ended up winning thanks to that contest. But there was also a couple other contests where the riders themselves would go and have to like pop balloons that were down on the ground, or like do these different tricks, weave around these barrels, and like put flags in buckets and things. It was really cool. There was also like comedy in the show too, because there was this like guy that was posing as like the like stable hand or whatever, named Skeeter. And of course he had his southern accent and everything. And he was just like so goofy. And that was like a whole comedy section to the show. There was also like a magic trick type of situation. It was a really cool show. And honestly, like, it was very cool to see the horsemanship between the horse and riders. Each of these riders is very acquainted with their horse. That is something that's super important to me as an equestrian. And these horses were like so bomb proof. Like, they had to deal with fire and loud music and flashing lights and like all of these stuff. There was like also a bunch of drill team type formations, which is like when you're in a group with other people on horseback and you're like doing different formations and maybe some stunts and different things and like carrying flags. And there was a lot of that too. So it was just like an incredible show. I highly recommend, if you're in the area ever, definitely something that's very worth checking out for sure. Anyway, Wednesday evening, we went to do a mountain coaster, which was not too far from the Dolly Parton Stampede. And it was the same mountain coaster that I did with Mom, Dad, and Ethan last time we were here. And so we got like 2 rides, and you wait in line for a bit, and then you get in, you're like in an individual little car on the track. And it, with like a pulley system, it takes you up the side of the mountain, and then you basically like you have your own brakes and acceleration on the thing, and so you can kind of control your speed a bit, like if you want to go slower. But honestly, like don't be that person, because it's kind of annoying to get behind someone if they're going really slow and you want to just like zoom, But it's kind of broken up into 4 different sections where you like kind of zoom, and then it slows you down for a second, and then you got to go like up another hill. And then, so it's like good at spacing people out, but it's cool because they have like cameras and sensors at certain points, and afterwards you can see on the screen like the picture and how fast you were going. The fastest we got up to was like 22 miles an hour, or like 23 for one of those. The fastest the lady was saying was like someone went 30 miles an hour, which I'm like, that's crazy. That, like, it's got to be a weight advantage thing. Like, there's just no other way you'd be able to get going that fast. But it's really fun. It's kind of one of those things that's like, it's not like a crazy roller coaster. I mean, you're going down and around some spirals and stuff, but like I said, you can control your own speed, and it's just like a cool thing to do. So we did that in the evening. It was shorter than I remembered it being, honestly, like the course, but it was still cool to do. So that was our Wednesday, and I think I'm gonna wrap up this episode now, because once again, it is getting a little long. So I guess we'll do another episode where I finish talking about this trip, because there's a story time that I have to get into for like Friday night into Saturday, but also I got to talk about what we did on Thursday and Friday. So stay tuned for that, because, and I know I said last week, like, oh, that'll be next week, but again, I'm talking for way too long about this stuff. So it'll be next week. I promise it will be next week. So anyways, thank you for listening to me rant and ramble about the trip some more. Stay tuned for the next episode. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're having a great weekend. Whenever it is you're listening to this, I will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.